I going to say? Oh, yes. We had mentioned that at the last class, everybody was so sad that the class ended, and they were like, "Wait, we want more of Dr. Khodadad." So we said, "Okay, we'll have this one more class. So we'll open it for everybody who wasn't able to participate and who may have questions on the book and would like to have more insight on dynamics of growth, because it was a fabulous book. I will say you have something to look forward to because Dr. Khodadad has been encouraged, she says, to write another book. So we're excited about that. Very excited.
May I say something?
Please,
Few
the
words.
floor is all
What
yours.
I'd like to say to you, the way the book was written and the title, The Dynamics of Growth, Principles at Work in the Worldwide Advancement of Baha'i Faith. So there was a premise there, and I still stand by that premise, but I know maybe one or two of my friends have not liked it. And the premise is that the Baha'i faith has not grown as fast as it should have, because it addresses all of the problems of humankind at this time period in time, and hence its growth has not been as one would expect from a system that is so dynamic and has so many components. So I wanted to say that right off the front. And if you're among those who feel that way, it would be wonderful to have that discussion, because in this book, I have tried to provide some background based on science, which is my field of study, and based on various metaphors to explain this very issue. Anyway, I stop at that.
I endorse that 200% because it was said that if at the time of the visit of Abdul Baha to America, had the Baha'is then did what they should have done, half of New York would have been Baha'is today.
Yeah, thank you, Leighton. Yeah, does anybody else have any input on that? Let's open with that. John.
Okay, well, I never have followed this line of thinking for two main reasons. One is Baha'u'llah, it would have happened in his lifetime. He offered it, he wrote to the world leaders, and then he said, if this is rejected in my life, it'll take a long time. The other reason I reject it is this goes to the Universal House of Justice, that because we are so widespread now. I think we're as widespread as Christianity. 20 years ago, Britannica published we were second. Well, we've really accelerated our spread since then. But regardless, how could the Baha'is in all over the globe, all those local spiritual assemblies, all those devoted Baha'is, okay, some are making this mistake and we're not growing. Well, there's the third thing I'll say, and I'm going to end now, is of course Abdul Baha's writings we don't do enough, of course. So that is just we're not Abdul Baha, and he says do more. And each year the House of Justice says redouble your efforts. So I've only been a Baha'i 45 years, so redoubling my efforts. I don't know where that ends up. But the other thing is, how can all of these Baha'is be making the mistake? There's got to be, and we do have growth. Right now we have growth in the Pacific Islands, and it's really on fire. And then in the last 5 years, I've seen all these temples. But so my main point, the reason I don't believe this is because some people are on fire with love of Baha'u'llah, the Bab, love of the covenant, and coming up with all kinds of ideas. And I think it's going just according to plan. And of course, there's pockets where we're not doing what we should. But overall, worldwide.
I thank you very much for saying this. It's very uplifting.
And recently,
Leighton, before we go to you, Jay had his hand raised, so I just
sorry.
want to give him,
Yes,
Jay,
go ahead.
unmute yourself, and then we'll come to you, Leighton.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Dr. Jenna, I agree with you 100%. I think we should be growing faster. And I think one of the reasons, the your ideas about crystallization and stuff, I'd like to just touch on them. But when an organism grows, it can either grow, it needs a structure to grow. If it grows without developing a structure, it will collapse on itself. Or if it doesn't develop a structure, it'll quit growing. And so the Baha'is at our stage of growth, like the crystals, we're forming nuclei. Well, I think of we read something from Shoghi Effendi about the two manifestations and the crystallization that was going to take place, and that it was new institutions. So the Baha'is need new institutions that'll enable them to grow and sustain that growth without collapsing. And I'm interested in the whole development process. One thing I talk about is the Baha'i agricultural network. That's just that's just a nuclei to help us grow. The real goal is unity and collaboration. That when the Baha'is develop that skill, we talked over the last few months. We talked about the purification and preparing the Baha'is, and that's true. But we'll never be complete with our spiritual development. What we need to concentrate on is our ability to unite and collaborate. And I won't talk too much longer, but a new race of men. There's a part of the brain that developed, 40,000 years ago, maybe, that separated us from the Neanderthals. And that was that we were able to have empathy for each other and work together. That the Neanderthals had groups of 5 or 10 people, but the Homo sapiens started having hundreds of people working together. And they were able to work together and collaborate in order to survive. And so that part of the brain can grow so that just like I saw your face. I think I might have lost it there. I'm sorry, but just like uh, um, a super organism, like a school of fish or a flock of birds, they act as one organism. And the Baha'is will develop the skill. What you were talking about, the laser and the concentrated effort, that when we have the institutions like the agricultural network and we develop our clusters with social and economic development in a systematic way, then we'll become a magnet and grow. So I can go on, but I'm going to stop. Thank you very much. And Dr. Jenna, I hope I can help you write that book. I want to give you any of my ideas, and you can say
Thank you very, thank you very. May I respond to that? There are other hands. Thank you very much. And in this context, I would like to say that there is a chapter. Part of one of the chapters compares growth of Baha'i faith to early Christianity, and so within that we can see that there are phases and there are events that do happen that accelerate growth.
One thing about that, the Roman Empire spread like an army with a front line and taking over nations. The Baha'is are going to spread like pollen. We're going to have clusters that'll be growing, and we won't be constrained. Our rate of growth will be much faster. I'm going to use this analogy, but it's got a negative. We'll spread like a virus. We'll spread fast. So I know that virus wasn't a good one, but pollen, let's go back to pollen. We'll spread like pollen. And And we'll grow fast when we reach that threshold, when we get our structures built. But if we don't have our structures, we can't grow.
Okay, I'd like to go to Leighton and then to Dr. Khorshidi. So Leighton first,
Uh,
please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the recent articles or features in the Baha'i World News Service about Asia and Africa was that the non-Baha'i community were there and feel more attached to the local spiritual assembly in those countries than they do in the West. And that was startling. They think that this is their institution, the non-Baha'i community. And that was amazing. That is amazing.
Thank you. Dr. Khorshidi, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. This book basically, I look at this book as a textbook, so I can refer to in many aspects, especially the process of chaos that Jena has brought with all its features, which it's really beautiful. But what it's mentioned now, it just made me think about the time of Abdul Baha, that so many people identified with the principles of the faith and the loving kindness of Abdul Baha and the inclusivity in the faith. And I'm thinking that keeping the um, oneness of this revelation and prevention from division. If it wasn't for the covenant, everybody had its own version of the Baha'i faith because everyone in the world, they love one or some aspects of this faith because it applies to them. So millions and millions could be Baha'is or could be called Baha'is, but divided Baha'is. This beautiful principle, gem-like um, entity that we have in the faith, which is the covenant, and keeps this revelation and this truth um, pure. This really needs a lot of work and a comprehensive understanding of the relationship of the creator and creation. But we remember the history that after the passing of Abdul Baha, many uh, objected to the administration because this wide energy that was released and now it was going through administration. They didn't want that. They wanted their own version of the faith and the things that they liked. So it was like any other religion. They wanted to pick and choose and select. And by now, yes, there were so many billions of Baha'is all over the world because everybody had their own version. So that came to my mind that this covenant is so precious and it takes um, uh, labor to keep this revelation pure the way that Baha'u'llah intended to be.
Yeah, I'm going to chime in here because I recall there were traditional methods such as firesides and deepenings. And the Baha'i faith, as we all know, we don't have clergy. So, what I feel attracted more people to the faith were these firesides, were these deepenings. I think when they see, and I don't know, this could be just me, no disrespect to any of the, classes, the processes, the Ruhi classes, the other, types, because I teach them and I participate. But I don't think that becomes attractive to a seeker. I think when we had firesides and when we had the deepenings, they were more apt to come. And that's just maybe my opinion. But but I kind of see that shift. And it was, remember the days of England Dan and Jodford Coley? We had all those types of music, Seals and Crofts. I mean, people in droves were becoming Baha'is, right? So, and there's been like a little bit of a standstill. But yeah, I put a little bit of statistics in the chat for the friends. Worldwide, we have over 2.6 billion Christians. We have about 2 billion Muslims, and Baha'is, there are, about 8 million worldwide. So, anybody else have any comments or questions for Dr. Khodadad?
Uh, if no one has, may I just add one thing? So this book, with a picture of butterfly on its cover, essentially, in my soul searching and spirit searching for this question, which I've had for quite a while, because ever since I was a teenager, and that was a long time ago, I probe this question to myself all the time. Why are our numbers larger? Because everything about the Baha'i faith is in the superlative. It's so magnificent. Why can't others see it and accept it? And that was in an Islamic country that I was raised, so it had its double whammy. But anyway, the point is that in this book, I have produced a number of metaphors, which may be meaning to some of you and may not be meaningful to the rest of you. But because my field has been science, hardcore science, I found these metaphors, which for me momentarily answered the questions. And these metaphors also depended also on the timing, certain things that could happen, or certain things that would be revealed, or certain transformation that could take place. And hence the picture of that butterfly on the cover. So it's been an enigma to me, and it continues to be an enigma, because what we have in this package of the Baha'i faith is all sweetness and light. It is magnificent. Why is it that is not being perceived? Is there something we could do as individuals in the way we present it? Or is it just part of a process? Maybe it's just part of a process.
Excellent questions, madam. And I think it devolves on the Baha'is. We are not as firm and steadfast and serious as we ought to be. We're not putting the Baha'i faith first. If we're going to be serious, and I'll recur again, how successful the trip of Abdul Baha to North America could have been more successful than it was. It's all dependent, and because this is a spiritual enterprise, we are slow to accept and appreciate our spiritual development. For instance, a lot of us know when we were born, when we got married, our first job. Can we all honestly say, when did we realize the purpose of our birth? Not when you became Baha'i or when you were saved as a Christian. When did you realize the purpose of your birth? And we say the prayer every midday. I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. When did we realize that purpose? I'm finished. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. I'm pondering that right now. That's so beautiful. Yep. See, those are Baha'u'llah's words. Jay, please.
I think we talked about kinetic energy and potential energy. And so, again, to answer that question of how could we grow faster, we need to get that kinetic energy moving. And so, I go back to the institutions and an organized and systematic approach to development, that I think that it's not our fault if we don't grow, because we do want to grow. It's the fact that we don't have the structures in place. We want to do community service, but we don't know what to do. We hadn't focused like a laser and built that kinetic energy, which Baha'u'llah told us that agriculture was the foundation. And that's the only reason I talk about the Baha'i Agricultural Network or a agro housing community or even a global network of trade based on development. But again, it's the fact that we hadn't got the structures in place yet, that everybody could be united and focused like a laser. And the one thing about agriculture is it's like going to the gym and an athlete going to the gym and exercising to build that unity and collaboration. It's just a real good project. Besides food security and Dessia, where we fed people that were starving, and there's real great reasons that we need to do agriculture. But even to build our communities so that we're collaborating and we're building a culture, a healthy culture, and something that will attract other people, that we stand out for what we're doing, how we're different. And while we're doing that agriculture, the Baha'is have a history of planting trees, and our clusters can propagate trees and plant trees all over the world too to help the climate. And again, that kind of thing will, that kinetic energy, following our guidance and our heritage, will create that momentum, and it'll unite us, that we'll learn to work together on more complicated tasks.
Mr.
Thank you,
Craig,
Jay. Yeah, Leighton.
Mr. James Craig, we have the framework, we have the foundation. Here's the question. How many of us today have turned to our local Spirit Assembly for guidance or for help? How many of us? So we have the structure, but we're not using it and we're not relying on it. The structure is there. The Guardian died building the local and the National Spirit Assembly in order to have a foundation on which to build the universal laws of justice.
We're going to develop more efficient structure to take care of things. It'll be more intricate. That the structure we have is a foundation, but it's not with crystallization. And we need the simple thing like something to help us build our capacity and learn. Again, agriculture, we can build our capacity to learn and work together and build our momentum, like kinetic energy. But don't be afraid to grow. I mean, building new institutions, that's what really we've been told to do. That's what Chogi Effendi told us to do. So just build some new institutions. An agricultural network is a good one to start with.
Dr. Khorshidi, please.
Oh, this is so exciting, this conversation. If it's a comfort, Baha'u'llah says himself, the true one is come evident as the shining sun. Oh, pity that he should have come into the city of the blind. Baha'u'llah himself that what part of this truth you don't see and you don't get. So, but what I hear is just the enkindled heart and our inner wish that why such a beautiful remedy exists and humanity is not responding. Yeah, one part is that of course, if it was mentioned so beautifully, the purpose of our life is to teach and to be a Baha'i. Guardian, please correct me if I'm wrong. Guardian addresses this, that some of us, we belong to the faith. And we like to be called Baha'i and just go to Baha'i meetings. And some of us, our lives is the faith. Cannot be any other things. Our being is the faith. So maybe that's what we can all do. So
One line from the letter of the House of Justice, dated the 4th of January, 2026, page 2, the top line. It is the concern of the true one to reveal, and the concern of the people to spread what hath been revealed. That's our concern. We have to spread the vision of Baha'u'llah, which is the unification of humanity.
Yeah, excellent source. You said that was January 4th, 2026?
Correct.
Okay, page 2. Okay, perfect.
Page 2.
I have a question for Dr. Khodadad, and it's about crystallization in the Baha'i writings. You had mentioned that in the book. Can you touch a little bit on that? Because Dr. Khorshidi reminded me of course, the beloved Shoghi Effendi. And he had mentioned a lot about crystallization, and I know you have a lot of knowledge of course his writings and this whole crystallization. Can you just touch on that a little bit for us?
Well, the only reason I discuss crystallization, because in my scientific research and work, I touched upon that for wanting to crystallize one of the proteins of the membrane, human membrane. And so it all of a sudden took on a special significance when I was thinking in the concept of what we are discussing right now, that when a thing crystallizes, it takes on its form and it has various answers and reflections and ramifications. And that is why I put in one of the chapters on crystallization. And then that thought then took me to the whole concept of what is a crystal. A crystal is a substance that forms in its ultimate purity. And it has a specific structure. And when I started thinking along that line, wow, a whole new world of understanding was open to me. So a crystal is pure, uncontaminated, it has a form, and it takes on form, and it continues on. And hence, I gave the example of crystallization, which is in one of the chapters. Actually, I tried to draw the crystal formation. And when a crystal forms of a substance, you know it is in its purest form. Therefore, this discussion, may take us to the point where the answer lies in the purity of the structures in which we produce and in which we participate, to aim for that highest ideal of purity. Maybe someone else can embellish upon it, but these were my thoughts.
Excellent. I'm going to make it very materialistic. Crystallization begins with the word see. To make it more mundane, when we marry, we consummate the marriage. Another C. And out of that marriage, out of that consummation, there may be offsprings. Whether or not, but the marriage is solidified through the coming together of the couple.
Thank you. So it has many dimensions, do you agree?
Excellent. Yes, indeed. 100%. Yes. Yes. And our crystallization is our unwavering, unhesitating acceptance of God's messenger for today. We can't accept it half-heartedly. And perhaps it is half-heartedly. That's why we have not grown as much as we could have, because we are not 100% fully committed to the covenant that we have accepted.
Thank you so much. And that crystal, in order for it to be crystal, has to fulfill certain prerequisites. One of them is purity, and the other is highly organized structure. I don't know. This tells a lot to me. And as an individual, that purity of a system which we want to bring about, which really goes maybe to the purity of each individual, the purity of the thought behind it. We could expand on and on this. But crystal has purity. Once you have a crystalline form, it is pure without any contamination.
In the Messiah, about the potter, how does a potter know when it's crystallized, when it's pure? The answer is when he can see his face in the product. That's when it's pure. When you can see the reflection of your face in it. Do we see the reflection of Baha'u'llah in every person we meet? We're told we should see Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, in all the faces we meet. That's the purity. That is the real spiritual connection.
That's such a beautiful thought. Thank you so much, Mr. Rochester. Thank you.
I'm inspired by you, madam.
Well, one of Baha'u'llah's common names is beauty, and beauty is in the writings throughout. Used very differently in the Baha'i writings, I think, but it's the same as purity in a way, beauty and purity. I want to, Netta was talking about firesides and deepenings, and here in the Gulf Coast of Texas, we went through that recently with the Houston Assembly and various groups of Baha'is here, and that definitely ball was dropped for a while, but I think the mistakes that were made were corrected now, and we realize no, we have to use everything. Institute process, firesides, deepenings are very important, vital, even. And the Guardian created them. How could we have dropped that ball? But we did. I was in the Far East. One thing is, I would add, is pioneering. Pioneering has been revitalized in the recent letters, and that's a very powerful Baha'i tool, like deepenings, like firesides. It really I thought, I can read everything with this pioneering. You can just stay in your own space and be a mental pioneer. But no, 3 years in China taught me, no, that's not true. You need the physical aspect. Japan, the last I looked, very vital, important. My two backgrounds are world literature and social science. So, but Japan has one of the least, they have wonderful National Spiritual Assembly, wonderful Baha'is, but their growth is is underperforming. And we know about Europe is underperforming. And then we know India, Africa, South America, the islands are overperforming. So I really pay attention to social science and the population. And it's not surprising to me in America right now that I don't know. It's just difficult to explain Baha'u'llah to my neighbors and friends. And like someone said earlier, Baha'u'llah's beauty. How can, but in the covenant, and I really always use in my mind, Abdul Baha drew 3 circles, said he was in the center, and then there's the middle, And then there's the outer circle where Baha'is like to keep 1 foot in the Baha'i faith and 1 foot out. And how could this not be? Because, I mean, most of the world is not Baha'i. So how could we be expect a perfect local spiritual assembly when we are such a small and we don't have a lot of money like the Catholic Church, which is declining, or the Shiite hierarchy, and of course Iran right now at this moment. I've never had hope, but I actually have some hope right now. I hope that works out.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
Mr. Harkness, you speak the truth. Thank you so much. But we reach two impasses. How to address those?
Yeah, and we are told that one Baha'i is worth 1,000 Baha'is. That's the power. If we really put our faith in God, in Baha'u'llah. When I was very young, I heard a talk by the late Mr. Robert McLaughlin. He was an architect. And he said, if you took up some stones or pebbles of the ground, put them in a can and shake them for a long time, they'll bounce off each other and they'll come out perfect marbles. So we have to come together and bounce off each other. And that helps to perfect us. That will make us round and make us perfect. But if we're not bouncing off each other, we're not consulting, we're not studying together, we're not praying together, then we are depriving each other of growth and development and maturity as Baha'is for the propagation, the spreading of the Baha'i faith. But first, it's someone said, Khanum said to somebody, I don't talk about myself as a Baha'i. Well, she said, how do you expect to attract people to the Baha'i faith? By seeing it in us as Baha'is. If they don't see us striving, being different, then we're not going to attract them to us. It's not a book God passes by. They want to see the Baha'i faith in action, in how are we practicing having prayers together with our families, daily, weekly, or monthly. Simple things, these very simple things. And if we're not doing that, I went to a dinner party, Christmas party the other day, and the host was asked to say a prayer. And he was struggling, and people were laughing because he couldn't say a simple prayer. Thank you, God, for these blessings. That's what we're told to memorize prayers. So when something happens and we're called on, we can recite, offer a prayer, whether it's one line or blessed is the spot or oh God, my God.
Thank you. Dr. Khorshidi, please.
This is so beautiful. Guardian talks about this distinction, and he tells us that no matter what we do, no matter what kind of campaign, and no matter this and that, our internal lives have to be reoriented. In one of his statements, he says our activities even have to be reoriented. And to me, it's just so profound. Not only our thoughts, our behavior, but our activities, which is in the eyes of the public. They have to be, he says, reoriented. And it makes me think, one of the phenomenon that has happened in the last 50 years in Iran is that the Baha'i community has made itself distinctive. Under all kind of pressures, they remained intact from the forces of society and from all kind of influences of different parties. Baha'i community in Iran are a sizable group of people. So many um, different opposing since the Islamic regime came to power. Many opposing groups, they love to lure the Baha'i community, which are about 300,000 to 400, and many who are Baha'is, but they cannot be registered at this time, to their side, to get them to their side. But the Baha'i community stayed aloof to politics under all kind, and they lost many, many chances of comfort and ease for themselves and their communities and their families. But they stayed true to the covenant, and they fought, they did not get influenced by the demonstrations and the um, and the things that was just acceptable at the moment. They had this beautiful historical perspective that Baha'is cannot take sides because they see all one. This paradigm of oneness, oneness of God, oneness of religion, the paradigm of oneness that Jena talks about, paradigm of oneness of remained with them. Now, 50 years ago, we had more elite group in charge, but the name of the Baha'is were intentionally would kept and the Baha'i faith under the carpet. They would not talk. People would not talk about the Baha'i faith. People would not dare to talk about the Baha'i faith. They knew, or intentionally or not intentionally. The elite all knew. The educated knew, but they were not. They didn't want to mention the. But now we don't have any elite group in charge. And these people, they came and they really persecuted Baha'is. But everyone in Iran and all over the world, now they know the Baha'is. They all have witnessed the suffering and trueness of Baha'is, that they stayed uh, stainless, as Abdul Baha says. Abdul Baha, in one of his statements, says Baha'is are like a whitest cloth. Even one stain of water is evident on that. To that extent, we have to stay pure and really committed. And this is like this community in Iran is a frontier. They done it. So yes, we can do it too, to stay enkindled, enthusiastic, and really realizing that the purpose of our life and our being is the faith, to be a Baha'i rather than to be called a Baha'i, which is wonderful to be called a Baha'i. We have so many friends, they love to be a Baha'i, except they cannot, for example, accept this part. You see? So, and indeed, some Baha'is, um, which my heart goes for them, we are bombarded with the forces of society and social media. So we really have to deepen, as Nedajun mentioned, deepen and study and have fireside and ruhis to strengthen our own selves. But thank you. This is so exciting. Oh.
No, thank you. I think it's important, the whole Ruhi Institute also came into place to give us a process. So I think the Ruhi classes are great too. I think someone even in the chat, I think it was Joyce, yes, she said, we do need to do both. We need to educate ourselves, with these Ruhi classes. And yeah, I mean, this is why we have these Zoom classes. I don't think I'm ever going to end these because this is a type of deepening for us. This is, sometimes we do have like firesides, and I know Rose and Dr. Khodadad, they have their firesides weekly, I believe, if not monthly. But I think these are important. I think every person, once we take Baha'u'llah's name, we say we are Baha'i, we have that responsibility, and I don't think we should take it lightly. It is a responsibility, and I think in the Baha'i faith, especially the way Baha'u'llah speaks of love in so many different aspects of what love is in the spiritual life, in the service life, in the uniting life, in the human life. I mean, love, love is the greatest power that we have. And Dr. Khurada touches on it. She extends it to the word, and I love this word. It's empathy. And that comes from love. You can't have it if you don't have love.
Thank you so much, Jude. There is one other aspect of that crystallization model which I have used because as a model of transformation, the point is once it starts, then it becomes self-replicating. Then it continues on and on and on. And such is transformation within ourselves and our community.
Yeah, beautiful.
Excellent. Every time something happens in America, it drives me to the world of Baha'u'llah. And there's page 194. It talks about collective security. And I think of Winston Churchill, who mobilized the nations in Europe and America to fight the aggressor in Europe. And Churchill brought this about, and he also, out of that also came the European Union, unity. Now everything is falling apart because we've lost sight of God's purpose for man. And then Venezuela, in the news, it says Venezuela has oil for the next 800 years. Baha'u'llah says all these natural resources, they're for the world, for the people of the world, not for one person or one nation. So we have the answer, we have the vision, and we have the knowledge to share, but we have to build up our foundation, our institutions. And we're told that one institution, a local assembly, has effects all over the world, not only just in its little area, in some little town or village in the corner somewhere. It has universal effect. So the more local spiritual assemblies we have, and national spiritual assemblies, that spirit will vibrate throughout the world and cause people to stop and look at this budding, growing Baha'i community, this nucleus. So we're still a seed, but think of the ramifications of that seed, this spiritual seed that we're told that we have.
Yeah, Leighton, I went and I looked on page 194 of World Order of Baha'u'llah, as you said. The first opening sentence is remarkable, but I want to jump to the third paragraph and I want to read it because I think it's important here. It says, in a world the structure of whose political and social institutions is impaired, whose vision is befogged, whose conscience is bewildered, whose religious systems have become anemic and lost their virtue, this healing agency, this leavening power, this cementing force, intensely alive and all pervasive, has been taking shape, is crystallizing into institutions, is mobilizing its forces, and is preparing for the spiritual conquest and the complete redemption of mankind. So I hope that sparks some of you to go back and read World Order of Baha'u'llah and probably start again on page 194, but read like through the pages so you're not missing the context of what Baha'u'llah's message truly is. But I just thought that was beautiful. Thank you, Leighton. You caused me to want to go back now and do that. So thank you. Jay, please.
Yeah, Leighton had mentioned collective security, and but I think that Baha'is will be building resilient clusters with with food security and collaboration, and even in the future, the Baha'is will take on roles that government, um, taking care of our elderly or our burials. But so again, the resilient communities, I think, is where we're heading.
And again, in that same book, what happened on the declaration of the Bab in Iran, in Persia? At the same time, in America, what happened? Samuel Moss Brown clicked the first email, the first electronic mail. What hath God wrought? Two things happened at the same time in Persia and America. Today, that was the first electronic mail. Today, on all the social media, there's some bad things on it and some good things on it. And today, if you go through Facebook, and there's a thing, there's an arrow, it says see more, SEEMORE. And every other article, something of the Baha'i faith. Unfortunately, it takes bad things to make good things. There's a lot of women who are dressed, topless and all kinds of things. And in between that, you're seeing Abdul Baha, you're seeing the World Center, seeing photographs of and stories on the outstanding women in the Baha'i faith. But one has to go through all this stuff to see this. But that bad stuff is making the internet more popular. And sandwiched between all these things are quotations of the Baha'i faith, pictures of the temples of the Baha'i faith. Well, look what we have to go through to get to it. But the bad things, the less moral things, is making the messenger more popular. So the more popular that becomes, the more popular the Baha'i faith becomes. And I was telling some of my female friends, and they sent me something on Facebook. I said, I hesitate to press the button, see more, because I want to see you as I see you. So it's amazing. So the World Order Baha'u'llah covers everything that is happening in the world today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, friends, we have just a few minutes left. Dr. Khodadad, I guess I'd love to ask you. So again, let me just remind the friends if they haven't purchased this book and who probably were not in our book study, this is an amazing book. You don't want to pass this up. Please purchase this book and listen to our YouTube studies because we had 8 sessions and they're all recorded. But if there is one goal that you would want the reader or the participants here to take away from this book, Dr. Khodadad, of course, I'm sure the underlying is, go teach our beautiful faith. But what would be, in your words, what you would want the friends to take away from why you wrote this book, the whole purpose of this book?
Well, I'll go first to the purpose of this book because in recent years, I have emigrated from Iran many years ago. I was a teenager then, so that it's been many years ago. And I, having grown up in the environment of Iran, with all its complications, all of the prejudices against the Baha'i faith, and having been raised in a home environment whereby the Baha'i faith and the Baha'i writings presided over everything that was taught, the inspiration, having had that, and the puzzle of why is it that humankind is not grabbing this magnificent system, which has been the Baha'i faith, which has been presented to it. So that was the underlying stimulus and the why. And so the more I got into the field of science, which really is my field of study, quantitative science, I came up with metaphors and examples which seem to provide partially some of the answers I was seeking. And I know that those examples are so profound that they are yet to be reflected upon by me and have various ramifications. And some of those concepts, I'm sure that by this time you're familiar with. But underlying were so two overriding processes. One was the chaos process, what happens in the chaos process, and the other, the dynamics of growth, which becomes perceptible. You're looking at this butterfly, looking at that, thank you, butterfly, which really has so much potential. And it is in the process of metamorphosis. There are many factors that come into play so that it's enabled to fly and soar. So I feel at this particular point in history, I feel it in my bones. I'm not saying I'm accurate. I haven't got all of the truth. There is a lot more thinking, which remains for me to discover, is that we are at that stage of very slow growth. To me, it is a slow growth. And there's no way I can polish it to say, no, our growth is good. But it is very slow growth, which is part of that process, getting ready for the next step, whereby it should become much faster so that humanity can become aware of the treasure the Baha'i faith holds. And the fact that it's slow is provided in half a dozen metaphors, which I have explained in this book.
Would you say then that we're in the chrysalis stage?
Yeah, are we in the chrysalis stage? Well, we are in the stage before the butterfly really takes on its form and flies. If that's called the chrysalis stage, maybe chrysalis stage is a bit before that, or it could be chrysalis stage. At any rate, realizing that we are at that dormant period, and when it happens, then the transformation that catches on worldwide happens. Actually, in the writings of beloved Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of our faith, and I hope there are classes on that, there are many of these concepts implicit in that. When you talk about two processes, the disintegrative and the integrative. And if you were to plot those together, there is so much that becomes known or becomes, I get inspired by that. And there are many current scientists who are talking about processes which, in my view, relate to this chaos process and a major transformation. Among them, Ilya Prigozhin, a Russian presenter who speaks about this. So anyway, there is so much we're surrounded with, which each one of us can reflect on, and maybe to some of us, some of these examples are more meaningful because of our background, and I would encourage us to continue thinking along this line. But it is a given that this Baha'i faith brings the transformation for our times in a major, major way.
Deeply indebted to you, seeing you, hearing you, reading about you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so, so much.
Thank you. My pleasure. And I thank all of you for your interest and the effort you've taken to attend this session.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha.